Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton. And I don't know if anybody remembers out there this song called Back in the Day by Ahmad that came out in 1994. Please forget it was sampled by, Love TKO, Teddy Pendergrass was sampled for that song. But anyway, today's guest has done a lot of things and been a lot of places, some in sports. The sports world have, known him for a long time, and others are just getting to know him from, of course, the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Either way it goes, you know him and you recognize his face and voice. Welcome to the show, Arthur, Fox Sports host and one half of the hosting duo of Start Your Day with Sharon and Mike, with Sharon Reed on the Black News Channel. Mike Hill, what's going on, man?
What's up, Mike? How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for coming on. And I got to ask, you do a show that's on the West Coast sometimes, and you do a show that's on the East Coast. That has to be taxing. Man, how do you do it?
I'm still trying to figure it out. Like right now, I'm in LA, and I have to be up. I'm just counting down the hours, the time I have to be up, and I haven't even gone to sleep yet. So to let you know on a nightly basis that the stress of just having to actually go to sleep, trying to get at least 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night, just to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to be on the air at 3 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, man, it takes a lot out of you. But I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. It's a great experience, and I'm happy to be doing it.
Gotcha. Now, I also want to ask about your segment you have on the Black News Channel, which is Mic Check. For those that have not seen it, it gets real on there.
Yeah.
So, how did you come up with that?
Mic check, just kind of. I've been doing mic checks for a long period of time. I started doing it like on my social media page. Just if I had something to say, if I had something to get off my chest, I always try and brand myself with, Mike. It's just easy because of what I do. My book is called Open Mike. Just who I am, whatnot, being open with myself. Obviously, my name is Mike, so I play off the word microphone in my name, Mike. And then so mic check was just like, okay, let me check this thing, let me see if it's on, because I want to see if you hear me. You know what I mean? When I'm doing it. So that kind of plays off of that. So my segment, Mic Check, started off on Instagram with me just kind of, words of the day, some kind of wisdom that I felt like that somebody gave to me that was on my heart that I want to share with all the followers that I have. And then so it just kind of spawned on BNC, on Start Your Day, to have other fellas on there with me. Just kind of talk about some topics that are important for Black men in our community at this particular time. Anything that's relevant, anything that's going on. I just want honest, thoughtful, transparent conversations. And like you said, so far it's been really good because we've had some really good dialogue.
I definitely watched the one you had about talking about abuse and men talking about abuse. I watched that one. That was really good.
Yeah. Well, that's something that's really important to me, man, when it comes to abuse. And, that men, especially Black men, are able to come out and talk about if they've suffered any kind of abuse, whether it be any kind of mental trauma, physical trauma, sexual trauma, whatever. I think we have to get to the point, it's 2021, we can be open about those types of things and be able to get the help that we need.
You're right. Now, speaking of segments, of course, plenty may not be aware that you were actually in Nashville for a time on WKRN Channel 2 from 1997 to 2000. I remember watching you on the news. I know I'm dating you. I'm sorry, but I remember watching you on the news when I was in high school. What was the energy like when you were there?
It's crazy, but that's cool. You was in high school. That's good because I was still young myself. That was like my second or third job. So I think I was like 26 years old when I first got to Nashville. So I'm good with that. I'm an older guy, but that's cool. No, the energy was great when I first got there. Like Nashville today, from what I understand, 25 some odd years later, has grown tremendously from downtown. I think you guys got something called the Gulch or something like that wasn't there. Just imagine when I first got there, the Batman building had just gone up. The stadium, I think they call it Nissan Stadium, it just had gone up, and it was called the Gaylord Entertainment Center, had just gone up in downtown Nashville. So Nashville was kind of thriving in that way. So I was there from the beginning of the breaking of grounds, but I was also there when the Predators began play, I believe, in '96, and I was there when the Oilers came to town. as the Oilers and obviously spawned into the Titans. So it was really fun and exciting, man. But what's crazy is even though they had all these the professional teams that were there, including the Sounders at the time, my best experience, the most fun I had was covering high school football when I was down there on Friday nights, man. Being able to go up that chopper, going to these different academies, BGA, going to Brentwood Academy, going down to Franklin or whatever, and just flying in this helicopter, man, across the state, around the city and the metro area to bring out those highlights, man, on Channel 2. So I had a great time, man. The Buzz, they had a phenomenal sports scene down in Nashville when I was there.
No, I actually played at Brentwood Academy. So, yeah, you might have actually came out to one of my games.
There you go. That's why your name's familiar. Okay.
Now, speaking of energy, the then Houston Oilers, of course, moved to Nashville, became the Tennessee Titans during the time you were here. And, of course, they made the Super Bowl run. Can you describe the energy around the city when the Titans were making that magical run?
Man, it was crazy. That was my first time ever having an opportunity to obviously cover a professional team because I started off in Fresno. So Nashville, I started off at Hagerstown, Fresno. So Nashville was my third job. I had never covered a professional team before. And like I mentioned, I got an opportunity to cover two at the same time with the Predators and the Titans being there. They were Oilers, and then when they were back and forth from Memphis and they finally got their stadium and they became the Titans, that's when the buzz hit the town. That's when Nashville felt like they really had a football team because they were pretty much nomads. They had come from Houston. Nobody really knew much about the team or whatever, unless you were a diehard football fan and you feel like it was theirs. The Oilers, I remember that being a huge deal because they felt like that was Houston's team and not Tennessee's team. So when they finally got their own stadium, got their own colors, and got their own name, that was Tennessee, and it was the Titans, that's when the buzz started coming into the city, and it just kind of went through that whole magical season. I remember that season like it was the back of my hand, 1999, 2000, when they had some phenomenal players, Eddie George, Steve McNair, quarterback. The Javon Curse was a rookie on that football team. Marcus Robertson, Blaine Bishop, some of those guys. So just to see that run, I believe that year they started off 6-0. Their first loss was against the Rams on Halloween. Mm-hmm. I remember all that type of stuff. So it was just a buzz, and I remember people thinking this could be a special team, this could be a special year, and they really started buying into it. And they really bought into it, and of course Jeff Fisher was the man behind it. And like I said, it was just that magical run, and people forget that was the year that they had the Music City Miracle as well in order for them to get to the Super Bowl. So once that happened, I remember once they had the Music City Miracle in that last play against the Buffalo Bills, I remember thinking to myself, this team is going all the way. I mean, when things like that happen for you, when the cards are in your favor in situations like that, that means something magical is really going to happen. We already felt the buzz before that, and it just kind of catapulted them all the way to Atlanta for the Super Bowl where they came up 1 yard short.
Yeah, that one still stings for a lot of Titans fans. But
Yeah, it does, man. But, being there, just being a part of that and just going through that journey with that team and then seeing rejection in the locker room afterwards, man, it's surreal. I mean, it's like I said, that was 20, 21, 22 years ago, and it feels like just like yesterday. It's a vivid memory that I'll never forget.
They're probably the only team that got a parade for losing the Super Bowl.
I remember doing that too. I remember we covered that parade live. I was inside the stadium interviewing fans, and people were just so proud of the team. It was like Nashville had something, a professional sports team that was relevant. And it was theirs, like I said. So you're talking about the buzz. They had a buzz. I was in the city, and they felt and they really embraced that team. You got to understand, before that, to be honest with you, their professional football team was the Tennessee Vols. The Tennessee Volunteers were the premier football team in the state of Tennessee and in the city of Nashville before the Tennessee Titans made that run to the Super Bowl that year. And then after that, they just became a very relevant team and had a nice little run for a couple of years. And the rivalry they had with the Baltimore Ravens and Ray Lewis and all that type of stuff. So it was a good time during that time. And now it seems like it's coming back a little bit.
Speaking of now, of course, you see the tweets. The Titans have been facing a war of attrition when it comes to players like wide receiver Julio Jones, Bud Dupree's been out, AJ Brown. You got Derrick Henry. I mean, they're facing a ton of injuries. They've had the most players on a team that have been active in NFL history this year. They broke that record. Mm-hmm. So, but some of those guys are going to start coming back. And, like, for example, Julio Jones is back at practice now. That window's open up for him to get back out there. Now, Derrick Henry is the main person that everyone's going to talk about potentially coming back. And, of course, we won't know that one until it gets to, the end of the season, stuff like that. Now, say they get those guys back that I mentioned, Dupree, Henry, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, for the playoffs. Do you think they have a chance to make a magical run like they did the first year here?
Absolutely. I mean, shit, yes. I mean, if you bring in those type of players, you're talking about not just Pro Bowl players, you're talking about all pro caliber players on your football team, two of the greatest of their era, and Julio Jones and of course, Derrick Henry, who's still, to me, the best running back in the league. I know Jonathan Taylor's having a really good season this year as well, but Derrick Henry's a beast in that backfield. And you got a phenomenal coach in Mike Vrabel. Absolutely. I mean, look, they're doing it without him. They got the second, I believe they got the second best record in the AFC still, behind the New England Patriots right now. They're still very relevant. To be able to win that war of attrition, that next man up, I think it's only going to help the Tennessee Titans coming down the stretch. So when you get those guys back, guess what you got? You got some depth. You got guys that have played the game so that if somebody else goes down, they know they can fill that role or whatever. So as long as they don't get into their heads, the egos, the guys that are getting a lot of playing time now, when those guys, the superstars, come back to the team, as long as they don't check out and they stay within that team concept, absolutely. I don't see a reason why the Tennessee Titans, as a matter of fact, looking at all the teams, if they get those players back and they're healthy, which they won't be 100%, obviously, coming back from injury, but if I were to put that team on paper, knowing what I know now, when you consider some of the top teams in the league being Baltimore got a series of injuries, I don't know how much I still really believe in New England and the Patriots, even though they're winning, they're hot right now. They're running the football great. The Mac Jones threw the ball 3 times. I don't know how you want to take that. That was good coaching, to be honest with you. And Buffalo underachieving. Pittsburgh not really being relevant. The Colts are somebody I'm afraid of, to be honest with you. But if I were to put the Titans on paper with those guys coming back, I would probably put my money on the Titans to go all the way to the Super Bowl and represent the AFC, to be honest with you, if I knew those guys were back and they were healthy.
Yeah, it's definitely a big if. But, another big if is the Indianapolis Colts, like you just mentioned. I mean, right now, they're not in the playoff picture. They're in the A spot. So they're going to have a pretty fanatical finish to make the playoffs. So, even though they're hot right now, of course, they've got Cincinnati, Denver, Pittsburgh. They've got the Patriots, the Cardinals, Raiders, and Jaguars left on the schedule. I mean, I'm looking at that.
Jaguars.
What's that?
That's their schedule. They got the Patriots, the Cardinals, Raiders, and Jaguars.
Yep.
Coming up. Wow. Okay, that'll be tough. But you also got to look at the teams that are ahead of them too. Right? So you remember this year they're gonna have 7 playoff teams, right? So it's not gonna be 6 playoff teams. So they have 7 playoff teams. So you're right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're in the 9th spot right now.
Oh, nice.
Pretty much. Yeah, they're just pretty much there because they got a 7-6 over the Raiders right now. So they're in the 9th spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 9. So they're basically a half game behind the Buffalo Bills right now. That game against the Pats. Where's that game? Is that in New England?
I think that game is in New England.
Yeah, that game. So I mean that could determine a lot about their season. That game is actually in Indianapolis.
Well, that's even better for them.
So that's in Indianapolis, and they got a team. To me, that's what I like about the Colts, is that they got a team that's built for this time of year. They're strong on both sides of the football. Both lines are really solid. They're a team that can rush the quarterback and still play zone defense in the backfield or whatever on defense. And like I said, Jonathan Taylor is having an MVP type season, second one. And you got Carson Wentz, who's not making mistakes. He's doing enough to help win that football game for them and whatnot. So I think you look if they beat the Pats. Let's say they lose to the Cardinals. They can easily beat the Raiders. That's going to be a playoff, pretty much determining who's going to get in between the two of those, more than likely. And then in the season with the Jags, I like their chances of actually being there because of the teams that are in front of them, especially the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't rely on them. and the Buffalo. And I'm looking at maybe the Chargers bouncing down a little bit more because they've been really inconsistent, even though the Chargers are in the fifth spot right now. So even if the Bengals and the Bills made it, Steelers could still sneak in there, and the Chargers could slide out, and maybe the Colts slide on into that seventh spot.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, the Colts definitely have to finish strong, but gonna be a tough go. But speaking of tough goes, we're gonna talk about a guy that actually I believe was at Fox covering games a couple years ago. That would be Mr. Urban Meyer. Now, the Jags got blown out in Los Angeles versus the Rams, and they're currently 2-10. Do you think they will make it? As with Urban Meyer to actually be successful with him at the helm, or do you think he's gonna have a health issue and then decide he's gonna retire again?
That's the thing. That's the $1 million question a lot of people will ask. I thought he was going to have a health issue with his wife earlier this season. To be honest with you. I thought that was going to be the retirement of him as a person. But he got past that. He got past the little hiccup with his team too by not flying back with the team to Jacksonville. So, and they've won since then. That's the good thing. They got that little monkey off their back a little bit. At least they got some wins. Look, Jacksonville's a terrible team. It's a horrible team. It's hard to turn around a culture. And not only is he turning around the football team and help try and win football games in a division that you got the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans in right now, and then playing in the AFC, which is really tough. And then, the teams that they've had to play, it's tough to turn it around just like that, even if you got a rookie quarterback who was good in college, but he's still a rookie quarterback and he's still growing. One thing I know about Urban Meyer, if he does stay there, if his health does hold up and he's able to stay there, I know he has what it takes as a coach to turn things around and people buy into his system. But they got to buy into everywhere he's gone. He's won Bowling Green. He's improved his second year, I believe. Where did he go next? He went to Florida.
Went to Utah, then he went to Florida.
He went to Utah and went undefeated with Alex Smith as a quarterback, made Alex Smith the #1 overall pick. Florida, I think he won the national championship his second season there. At Ohio State, he was undefeated his first season. At Ohio State, won the national championship his third year. So this guy, if you buy into his system, and I know how great his coaching mind is just from being his colleague over at Fox and working with him and seeing him, how he breaks down films or whatever and whatnot, and how some of the players there, he could be a little mercurial. He could be a little odd personality-wise, but once again, he's a really good football coach, and I got mad respect for him. And, I think, like I said, if he's into it, I believe the team will turn around.
Got you. Well, we have somebody that actually hit up the AFC South inbox asking, where is Cynthia?
She's downstairs, man. She's just resting right now. Yeah.
All right. Now, lastly, of course, do have to talk about the Houston Texans. That's been pretty rough team, a pretty rough team to follow if you're a Texans fan as well. It hasn't necessarily been the best run for David Culley. Do you think he actually gets a chance to turn it around down there, or do you think management kind of pulls the plug on him?
They can't. They wouldn't. They better not do that to that brother, man. They're talking about a culture that's terrible right now. They got a horrible culture. I mean, they got a lot of stench to clean up, and David Culley can't do it just on the football field. I mean, like, one of the best top 5 quarterbacks in the league, you can't just sit him out the entire season, not play him, get nothing in return for him, and say, okay, you're going to win football games. Now, some people have been able to do it. You got a good atmosphere, good people around, but the culture was already terrible. One of the big reasons why Deshaun wanted out. Now, I know he's got some off-the-field issues he's got to deal with. The team's got to deal with as well. But one of the reasons he wanted out is because of the culture that's down there with the Houston Texans. So he's got a lot to deal with. So if they were to get rid of a guy like David Culley, when there's been a lot of emphasis on the lack of African-American coaches in the National Football League, you get that brother one season or even just 2 seasons. Now, it'd be one thing if he just didn't coach well at all and the players just quit on him. That's one thing. But if he's down there and the players are working hard for him, it's going to take some time to go ahead and mop all that stinking crazy stuff that's down there up. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, it definitely is pretty interesting, to say the least, down there. Now, of course, we talked about the divisions, talked about the teams. I want to ask you about the Rooney Rule. Now we've seen some adjustments to it over time. But how do you think we move forward towards more equality in the coaching arena with the adjustments that have happened?
They just need to hire. Well, first of all, they need to hire more black general managers, and we need black owners. We need black ownership. Look, I mean, they don't get it. A lot of people in the community just don't get it. The National Football League, and I've said this numerous times, that I think it just has a history of being racist. It does. I mean, you think about it over the years, from the Colin Kaepernick situation to they have a, I ain't gonna say, I shouldn't say racist. It's almost a slave owner mentality, and not just with black players, but white players too. In and out, how they come in, they get rid of you once you ain't good enough anymore to perform for them or whatever. So they have an issue of doing things like that. The National Football League knows that they have to take a really deep dive and deep look at themselves in the mirror and realize that they have a culture issue, that they have an issue when it comes to race relations, not only on the football field, but behind the scenes in the front office or whatever. It's a shame when you only have a handful, one or two black general managers in the National Football League, and 70% of the players are black. It's a shame when you only have 3 black head coaches. You have no owners. You know what I mean? That's how can that be? So until that changes, it's just like a lot of the other corporations that are around here in the country. Until you get somebody that understands the plight of an African American and understand that they shouldn't be judged on a curve like they do sometimes, where they look and say, well, a black man has to do almost 150% time more than a white person to be able to be seen as equal, but give them the opportunities that they deserve, like the Eric Bieniemys of the world and the Byron Leftwich of the world, those guys that they need, give them the real opportunities to go out there. Like the fact that you brought up David Cullen and said if he's going to get an opportunity to stay around after 1 year, that lets you know the mindset, the culture. We didn't say the same thing. The question that you asked me about Urban Meyer was like, is he going to leave? Not if they're going to get rid of him. Is he going to leave? That's the mindset that we have because of the history of the National Football League in a nutshell.
Yeah, you make a great point. Definitely make a great point. And last but not least, you mentioned their names already. That would be Byron Leftwich, who is the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Eric Bieniemy, who is the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, does one, both, or neither of them get a head coaching job this offseason?
I think they both. It depends on it depends on how many openings there are. I mean, I don't know who's getting fired, to be honest with you. I mean, like the teams that are still horrible this year, they were horrible last year. They just hired people, Detroit, Jacksonville, so they're gonna give them extra another chance. The Giants may be looking for a head coach. That's the thing. It's like I'm trying to think. I think the Giants have had Minnesota. Yeah, and what's crazy is I love Zim. And that's my guy. Like, I've been knowing Zim since I covered the Cowboys back in Dallas, and so I would hate to see Zim lose his job. But yeah, if he does falter, then yeah, there's gonna be opportunities out there. We'll see what the Giants do with Judge, how they judge him. No pun intended when it comes to that after the season or whatever. But yeah, I think if they don't, it'll be a shame. And if one of them doesn't, it'll be an embarrassment, to be honest with you.
I hear you. Well, I definitely want to thank you for your time and thank you for coming on. And just want to, let everyone know where they can find you, what all you have going on. I'm pretty sure everyone knows, but, you got to, tell them, of course, obviously.
Well, you can find me on social media channels on It's Mike Hill, ITS Mike Hill on Instagram and on Twitter. Please go out there and continue to support my book, Open Mic. It's in bookstores right now at barnesandnoble.com, walmart.com. It is amazon.com. So please continue to support that. It's really big, and we're trying to help people with mental health when it comes to that. Please continue to support me on BNC. Start your day. If you can get up early in the morning, I believe in Nashville comes on 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 a.m. until 9 a.m. Weekdays, Monday through Friday on the Black News Channel. And support me and Cynthia in a lot of endeavors that we got going on together and separately. So yeah, so whoever asked for that for Cynthia, you'll be seeing a lot more of both of us, even though she's not on the show anymore. in the upcoming future. We got a lot of things that's happening.
Well, one thing I will also say is I do have my copy of the book. It is a good book, so anybody who's listening, go get it. Secondly, I would say if you're listening and you want the Black News Channel in your area, talk to your providers, things like that. Try to figure out how to get it in your area. That's another thing you can do. Just want to thank you again for coming on. And you've been listening and watching to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. I'm out.
All right, Mike.